What happens when the most feared bully at Westbrook Academy targets the wrong black girl? When Aiden Thompson pushed Zoe Davis against the lockers, he expected fear, submission. Instead, what happened in the next 10 seconds left the entire school speechless. Nobody, especially not Blake, saw it coming. One moment he was standing tall, smirking at his prey. The next, his entire world shattered. Stay with me, because this story isn't just about a bully getting what he deserves. It's about what happens when someone with privilege pushes someone who's been fighting her entire life. Westbrook Academy, pristine hallways, designer backpacks, old money, new Range Rovers. Right now, all eyes locked on one scene unfolding by the science wing. Zoe Davis turned the corner, mind focused on her AP chemistry test. 3 minutes to get there. No drama needed, just another day trying to be invisible at a school where she stood out in every way possible. The universe had other plans. Aiden Thompson stood in the middle of the hallway like he owned it, because in many ways, he did. 6'2", blonde hair, built like he lived in the gym, family name on half the buildings downtown. He spotted Zoe, and his lips curled into something between a smile and a sneer. "Well, well," Aiden's voice carried, deliberately loud. "Look who's wandering the halls." Students stopped, others slowed down. No one intervened. At Westbrook, when Aiden chose a target, you either watched or walked away. Nobody stepped in. Zoe tightened her grip on her backpack strap. Not today. She had spent months ignoring his comments, months pretending his words didn't burn. Today, she just wanted to get to her test. "Move, Aiden," her voice cut through the tension. "I don't have time for this." Wrong answer. Aiden's smirk widened. "Oh, you think you can talk to me like that?" He stepped closer, towering over her. "This school isn't for—" "For what?" Zoe challenged, looking directly into his eyes. Aiden's face hardened. Without warning, he shoved her. Hard. Zoe barely stumbled, but the message was clear. A warning, a challenge, a mistake. Gas rippled through the growing crowd. Phones appeared instantly. This wasn't just bullying anymore. This was content. Zoe tilted her head, studying Aiden with unnerving calm. Too calm. "You really don't want to do this," she said quietly. Aiden laughed, looking around at his audience. "Or what? You gonna run crying to Principal Matthews? Go ahead." Another shove, harder this time. The crowd tensed. Someone whispered, "Dude, too far." Zoe rolled her shoulders, exhaling slowly. "All right then." She dropped her backpack to the floor, and before Aiden could process what was happening, wham! In one lightning-fast move, Zoe grabbed his arm, twisted her body, and flipped all 190 pounds of Aiden Thompson over her shoulder. He hit the polished floor with a thunderous crash that echoed through the entire hallway. For the first time in his life, Aiden Thompson wasn't on top, wasn't in control, wasn't the king of anything. He lay flat on his back, staring up at the ceiling, his entire world literally turned upside down. Complete silence. Then, "Oh my God!" someone screamed. The hallway erupted. Cheers, applause, shocked laughter, phones recording frantically. Zoe calmly picked up her backpack and stepped over Aiden's body like he was nothing but a speed bump in her day. "I told you," she said, voice ice cold. "I don't have time for this." The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. Aiden groaned, rolling onto his side. His face burned crimson with pain, with shame, with rage. This wasn't over. Not even close. By lunchtime, the entire school had seen it. Videos of Aiden gets destroyed by Zoe Davis spread like wildfire across every social platform. People who'd never spoken to Zoe suddenly wanted to sit with her, wanted to know her story, wanted to be associated with the girl who took down Westbrook's untouchable tyrant. "Where'd you learn to fight like that? That flip was insane. I've waited 3 years to see someone stand up to him." But across the cafeteria, Aiden sat with his friends, an ice pack on his shoulder, his eyes never leaving Zoe. The humiliation burned worse than the physical pain. 3 years building his reputation. 3 years making sure every student at Westbrook knew his name. feared his anger, respected his power, all destroyed in 10 seconds by a girl he thought would be an easy target. His friends leaned in, voices low. "You can't let this go, man." Everyone's talking. "The video's got 5,000 views already." Aiden's jaw clenched. "You think I don't know that?" He pulled out his phone, thumbs flying across the screen. "Meet me at the gym, 4 p.m., no cameras. We're dealing with this." 4 of his closest boys responded immediately. "We're in." Aiden looked up, catching Zoe's eye across the cafeteria. He held her gaze, letting her see the promise of what was coming. She'd embarrassed him once. It wouldn't happen again. By 4 p.m., she'd learn exactly what happened to people who challenged the natural order at Westbrook Academy. The countdown had begun. By the end of the school day, Zoe Davis wasn't just a student at Westbrook Academy anymore. She was a legend. The video of her flipping Aiden Thompson had over 10,000 views and counting. Comments flooded in. "Most satisfying thing I've ever seen. Rich boy got wrecked. Queen behavior." But fame at Westbrook came with a price, and Aiden Thompson was about to collect. Zoe stood at her locker, gathering her books. The hallway had finally emptied. For the first time all day, nobody was staring at her, asking questions, wanting to be her new best friend. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Meet me at the gym, 4 p.m. Let's settle this. No cameras." Zoe stared at the screen. She knew exactly who it was from. She should have ignored it, should have gone straight home, should have told someone. Instead, she typed back, "I'll be there." Some fights, her grandmother always said, you can't walk away from. Some people only learn respect when they have no other choice. Westbrook's gymnasium was massive. Championship banners hung from the rafters. Polished floors gleamed under the fluorescent lights. After hours, the space felt both empty and too full, like the air itself was holding its breath. Zoe pushed open the double doors at exactly 4 o'clock p.m. Her footsteps echoed across the empty court, or at least it looked empty. "I'm impressed you actually showed up." Aiden's voice bounced off the walls. He stepped out from behind the bleachers, but he wasn't alone. Marcus, Tyler, Derek, and Jordan flanked him. His personal entourage, all athletes, all built like brick walls, 5 against 1. Zoe's stomach tightened. She kept her face neutral, betraying nothing. "Needed backup, Aiden? Afraid to face me alone after what happened this morning?" Aiden's jaw clenched. This isn't about being afraid. It's about respect. Tyler stepped forward, cracking his knuckles, "and teaching you your place." Zoe scanned the exits. The main doors behind her, emergency exit to the left, locker rooms to the right. No good options. 5 against 1, she said, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. "Really brave." Aiden smirked. "Life isn't fair, Zoe. Figured someone like you would know that by now." He nodded to his friends. They spread out, slowly circling her like wolves. Zoe dropped her backpack, centered her weight. 3 years of training with her uncle, a former MMA fighter. 2 more years at the community center downtown. Countless hours learning that your mind was your strongest weapon. Stay calm, stay focused. Aiden moved first, a wild punch fueled by rage and wounded pride. No technique, all emotion. Zoe sidestepped effortlessly, using his momentum against him. He stumbled forward off balance. Marcus lunged from the right. She ducked, sweeping his legs from under him. Thud. He hit the floor hard. Tyler grabbed for her arm. Mistake. She twisted, driving her elbow into his ribs. He doubled over, gasping. 3 seconds in, and 3 of them were already struggling. Derek hesitated, his confidence visibly shaken. "What are you waiting for?" Aiden shouted, recovering his balance. "Get her!" Jordan and Derek rushed her simultaneously. Zoe dropped to the ground, rolling between them. They collided with each other instead. 2 football players crashing at full speed. The sound was brutal. Both went down hard. Aiden stood alone now, staring at his fallen friends with disbelief. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. 5 against 1. They should have overwhelmed her easily. But they'd underestimated her. Again. How? He started backing away slowly. Zoe stepped forward. My uncle taught me something important. It's not about size or strength. It's about using what you have and knowing your opponent's weakness. What's my weakness then? Aiden sneered, trying to maintain his bravado. Your ego, she said simply. You think you're untouchable. That's why you never learn. She moved lightning fast, 2 steps forward, pivoting on her back foot, and crack! A perfectly executed kick caught Aiden squarely in the chest. He flew backward, crashing into the bleachers with a metallic bang that echoed through the entire gym. Silence, then groaning from 5 different directions. Zoe stood in the center of the gymnasium, surrounded by Westbrook's fallen elite. 5 boys, all bigger, all privileged, all now struggling to stand. She walked over to where Aiden lay, clutching his chest. She crouched beside him, her voice low and clear. Listen carefully, because I'm only saying this once. This ends today. No more targeting me. No more targeting anyone, you understand? Aiden stared up at her, a strange mix of fear and something else in his eyes. Maybe respect, maybe realization. His nod was small, but it was there. By morning, everyone knew. There were no videos this time, but 5 bruised and limping boys told the story clearly enough. Whispers followed Zoe through the hallways, but different now. Not just awe or entertainment. Something had fundamentally shifted at Westbrook Academy. Did you hear what happened? She took on all 5 of them, alone. Aiden's not even talking about revenge anymore. Zoe kept her head up, walking the same hall she always had. But nothing was the same. Nothing would ever be the same. 3rd period, AP Chemistry. Zoe slid into her seat, pulling out her notes. Someone sat down beside her. She turned, surprised to find Aiden Thompson, of all people, taking the empty chair. His face was still bruised, his movements stiff, but he met her eyes directly. I've been thinking, he said quietly. Zoe raised an eyebrow, saying nothing. I've been an ass, not just to you, to a lot of people. She studied his face, looking for the trap, the angle, the hidden smirk. There was none. Why are you telling me this? Aiden looked down at his hands. Because nobody's ever stood up to me before. Nobody's ever shown me there are consequences. Zoe almost laughed. You needed someone to beat you up to figure out bullying is wrong? Some lessons hit harder than others, he said, a hint of a genuine smile breaking through. Literally. Before she could respond, their teacher entered, calling the class to order. Aiden slid a folded note onto her desk before turning forward. Zoe opened it carefully. I'm sorry. I won't ask for forgiveness. Just a chance to be better. She stared at the words, written in neat handwriting. Was it a trick? Another game? She couldn't be sure. But as class continued, something nagged at her, something her grandmother always said. Standing up for yourself is only the first step. The real strength comes in how you handle what happens after. When the bell rang, Aiden gathered his books slowly, clearly waiting for her. Zoe hesitated, then made her decision. You get one chance, she said firmly. One. He nodded, understanding the terms. As they walked out of the classroom together, the hallway literally went silent. Phones appeared. Whispers erupted. Is that Zoe and Aiden? Are they talking? What is happening right now? But the most surprising thing wasn't the reaction of their classmates. It was how little Zoe cared about it. She hadn't come to Westbrook for drama or fame or social politics. She'd come for an education, for a future her parents had worked 3 jobs to help her secure, and now finally she might actually get it, on her terms. Aiden cleared his throat. You know everyone's staring, right? Let them, Zoe said, her eyes forward. They'll get used to it. What neither of them realized was that this unlikely moment, the bully and his target walking side by side, would change Westbrook Academy forever. But that story was just beginning, and it was about to get complicated. 2 weeks later, Westbrook Academy was a different world. Zoe walked through the cafeteria, tray in hand. Head still turned, but the whispers had changed. She's the reason Aiden started the anti-bullying committee. Did you see how she stood up to those seniors yesterday? My little brother says nobody messes with the freshmen anymore. Zoe sat at a table that would have been unthinkable a month ago. Students from every clique, every background. Aiden sat across from her, bruises faded but the lessons still fresh. The principal approved our proposal, he said, sliding a folder across the table. Full support for peer mediation training. Maya, a sophomore who'd been bullied for years, looked up in disbelief. They actually listened? They listened when they had no choice, Zoe corrected. Sometimes you have to force people to see what's right in front of them. Aiden nodded, a hint of shame still lingering in his eyes. I was the worst of them. Took getting flipped on my back to finally see it. Zoe studied him. His transformation wasn't instant or perfect. There were still moments of arrogance, of privilege, but he was trying. That counted for something. The hardest fights, she said, aren't physical. The cafeteria doors burst open. 2 administrators walked in, followed by a news crew. The principal beamed, waving them over. Ms. Davis, Mr. Thompson, Channel 7 wants to interview you about your initiative. Cameras, microphones. Suddenly their story wasn't just school gossip, it was local news. How did a violent confrontation lead to positive change? What made the school's biggest bully become an anti-bullying advocate? Zoe felt uncomfortable in the spotlight. This wasn't why she'd stood up to Aiden. She hadn't flipped him for fame or recognition. She'd done it because sometimes you have to draw a line. But later, after the cameras left, a 6th-grade girl approached her, tiny, trembling, eyes full of wonder. Is it true? She whispered. You stood up to them by yourself? Zoe nodded. I'm scared every day, the girl admitted. But seeing you, maybe I can be brave too. That moment, not the viral video, not the news coverage, was when Zoe understood the real impact of what had happened. One person standing up could change everything. As she walked home that afternoon, Aiden fell in step beside her. My dad wants to meet you, he said. Thinks you've built character in me. Zoe laughed. Is that what we're calling it? What would you call it? She thought for a moment. A beginning. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. And sometimes the people we think are our enemies become the allies we never knew we needed. But more than anything, Zoe had learned this. Your power isn't in your size, your money, or your status. It's in knowing exactly who you are and refusing to let anyone make you forget it. And that was a lesson worth sharing. Like this story? Hit subscribe and drop a comment about a time you stood up for what's right. Sometimes the bravest thing we do is simply refuse to back down.